am filming this in continuation of my previous episode. It is still Saturday, August 24th, and it's about 9:30 p.m. And I just finished Castle in the Air by Diana Wynne Jones. It was lovely. It was creative. It was such a fun time. I really enjoyed it. I think it's even better than Howl's Moving Castle. I'm honestly so surprised with how this book turned out because I had my reservations at first, given that it's a sequel, and I don't know, sometimes I feel like sequels aren't as great as the first. And I was so curious as to how Diana Wynne Jones was going to bring in Howl and Sophie into Abdullah's storyline. And I love how she did it. That was such a win. I'm so glad I read it. Super wholesome, adventuresome, and very well done. I am a little nervous to read the third book. I don't think I'm gonna get into it anytime this year because the standard is now so high with Castle in the Air. So I'm gonna give it some time before I get into the third book. I'm really hoping it'll be like the Harry Potter series where like every book builds up and gets better and better. We shall see. So I actually decided to annotate this book after all, and I added a little extra bit to my annotating system where I will insert a little response on this pad over here and then indicate it with a little tab so I can keep track of it and not lose it to the book. Then later I will go and tape or glue that segment into my annotation notebook. I made a video on my new annotating system. It is an impermanent annotating system, so it's perfect for library books, special editions, or if you're just squeamish in general about annotating, which I am. I will never be the person who can mark up her books, so the impermanent method works well for me. I just had a thought. I remember I bought this little notepad, and actually this will be perfect for carrying my annotation supplies. It just got a little messy on my desk, but I'm gonna swap this out with this pad and save this for later. It fits so perfectly. My tabs are in here in this little pocket, and voila. My husband and I are hanging out with some friends today. I think the plan is that we're going to meet up at a brewery, which we will be drinking kombucha because we are alcohol free. Nothing against drinking alcohol, but it was just a personal decision for us, health decision, changing our life decision. And then the plan is to watch an alien movie, which I will be opting out of because I am squeamish. Apparently there's a touch of horror in it and that it may be grotesque, so I cannot watch that. I am not a scary movie girl at all. So while everyone else is watching and enjoying that movie, I'm going to head over to a coffee shop and read. So I'll be taking my new little travel-friendly annotation pack. It is Sunday, August 25th, day 65 of my modified 90-day novel writing challenge. In just a little bit, I'm going to get my session done so that I can be free and clear for the rest of the day. In a previous video, I shared my physical copybook TBRs in light of finishing Castle in the Air last night, which I read in an ebook format. I thought I would share my ebook TBRs. I generally read maybe like 8 to 10 books at a time. Sometimes I'll just read one book and stick with it, but I find that I do that less and I naturally just read much more with ease when I have a handful of books that I'm reading at a time. I am trying to figure out how to stay with one book longer without straining myself, so I'm still working on figuring that out. Though I'll read about 8 to 10 books at a time, a lot of them I do DNF. I'm also trying to figure out a more streamlined way for me to pick and choose the books I do read. It's tricky because some books I'll know maybe a quarter of the way through that it's really not working for me. And then other books I'll get to the 15% mark and that'll be like my hard stop. I do not find that reviews help me all that much, only because everyone has different tastes and preferences and different strategies in reading. People also look for different things when they choose books. And depending on one's mindset when reading a particular book, that can also totally flavor the experience. Usually what works for me is sampling a few pages, at least the first few pages or the first chapter if I can. But I also really dislike when I find a book, maybe at the library, I've read the first chapter and I'm so excited about it, and then maybe a third of the way through, especially if it's a long form book, it's just not working for me. So I'm trying to figure out how to hack that a bit more and refine my selection of books, because ultimately I do enjoy finishing books and there is such a sense of accomplishment in completing a read, though I will never pressure or force myself to finish a book now. It used to not be that way for me. By discipline, I would press through and finish every book I picked up no matter what. Also with the intention that this may not be something I enjoy, but I can still learn something from it. And while that mindset worked for me at that point in my life when I employed it, it does not work for me anymore. I am now at a phase in my life where I want to curate according to my interests and preferences, and curating is also a skill. Okay, so for the ebooks on my TBR, The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and All Passion Spent by Vita Sackville-West. I have written 72 words for this session. It's a little itty bitty one, but I am really happy with how it turned out. So staying true to ending on a high note, I'm gonna stop my session here. A coffee flight at 4 p.m. Today is Monday, August 26th, day 66 of my modified 90-day novel writing challenge. I have been up since 3 a.m. this morning. It has been a very full day. Yesterday at the coffee shop, I decided that I would DNF my philosophy books. I think I got exactly what I needed to out of them, and I'm feeling pretty dried out from philosophy now. I want to switch genres, change gears, turn over a new slate, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish transferring my annotations to my notebook, and hopefully by the time I finish with that, I'll have an idea of what I really want to move into next. I'm torn because I am divided between Divine Comedy, Homer's Works, or Don Quixote, but I also do have another book coming in the mail today, so maybe I'll wait until then. And I do want to go to the library today and pick out a random book. I love doing that. I've got lots of options to pick from. However, this upcoming month of September, I really want to focus my reads on less books. I want to find that bullseye book that I know I can just sit with until the end. I wrote 27 words for this session. Good morning. It is Tuesday, August 27th, day 67. Right now it is 6:40 in the morning. I am making some tea. Yesterday I was so absolutely exhausted. It felt impossible to read or write. My stomach was also bothering me and I was like super nauseous yesterday. Basically, I think I went a little overkill since being better, doing my usual activities together in one cluster was too much for me, I think. Sunday's activities with friends was fun, but I think I did too much. I am going to prioritize taking it slow and easy today. My stomach is still quite unsettled. I am actually quite an introvert, though when I'm out and about socializing, most people I don't think recognize this or realize this about me because I'm very social when I go out. But that's because I take the time to charge up before I go to these kinds of events so that I can socialize and make the most of them. It is so much effort for me to socialize, and truthfully, it is quite stressful for me. I get very easily overstimulated. I just don't think I gave myself enough time in between my work trip and then being sick and then trying to get back into the flow of regular life. Then, my husband and I went to a comedy show, and then we went out to hang out with friends, and I think I stacked it up way too high for me. For this session, I wrote 96 words. I went to the library yesterday and I picked up this collection of novels by Frank Norris and Rebecca. I have never heard of Frank Norris before, but from the little I've started reading of his first novel, Vandover and the Brute, he writes interestingly. Very clean writing, clean sentences written simplistically yet still potently. Basically, somehow he writes in a way where his simple sentences aren't boring at all, and they flow into the next sentence rather seamlessly. He does have a background in art and in literature, so I'm really excited to see how that influences his writing style. And for Rebecca, I picked up a physical copy since my library had it, and I want to read between that and the ebook version that I also have. I'm still formulating a plan for the vibes I want to create for the books I've recently purchased in my book haul, and since I'm still not feeling 100%, I want to wait a little bit before I dive into those. I just got to chapter 6, and I have some thoughts. The story is well written and well paced so far. It is interesting, but I'm not sure if I really want to get into a story of drunkenness, sensuality, gambling, and debauchery. I think there are plenty of stories out there with a white male protagonist in his 20s living his youth in drunkenness at bars and clubs and getting up to no good and turning from any form of redeemable conduct. At this point, I'm kind of sick of those stories. However, he writes really well. Frank Norris, and I've never heard of him before I picked up this book. The only notable book for me featuring the story of a privileged white male growing up in drunkenness and debauchery into his manhood is This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And that was a surprising find for me at Goodwill that I came upon. Personally, I'm not really a fan of Fitzgerald because school ruined him for me. However, I absolutely love This Side of Paradise. It is a tiny little novella, but it took me quite long to read actually because there were a lot of phrases that I was just slowly processing. It is one of my favorite books, but I think about this in retrospect, and I think part of the reason why that I was able to actually endure that storyline of such a character was also because it was short. Vandover and the Brute is not short, and I did just read the last page of it, and it's very depressing. There are 2 other novels, and I just read the synopsis on them. They also seem really depressive, and there are essays in this collection as well. This book is over 1,000 pages. It's got that super thin, kind of sheer paper. I'm gonna put this aside and think about it, but I have the feeling that I've already subconsciously DNF'd, only because I am sick and tired of debauchery. I understand the appeal of debauchery. I understand why it's exciting and why it's interesting. And I'm sure at the time this was written, it was quite progressive to write about that and quite revelatory. And again, it is very well written, so I will give it that. But I'm more interested in stories where characters, although they may be exposed to the vices of the world and they may partake in it, ultimately they come to realize that these kinds of environments aren't truly progressive and rather are environments of entrapment that then they decide to depart from and live in a truly liberated way. Okay, I think I am gonna DNF. I have talked myself into it through talking to the camera. However, all is not lost in my picking up this book because I discovered another author that I'm really curious about that I've only heard in passing reference, but I've never really looked into myself. The French author Emile Zola. I did a little research on him and I've read some excerpts. And so far, I like the style and the tone. He wrote a 20-volume collection, and I did some research as to which one I should start with. I found this awesome blog post that ranked Zola's works and also offered a variety of list options presenting a newcomer with an order to read Zola's works. So, from Norris, Zola is now on my radar and he is now on my TBR, which is something new. So nothing was lost in me picking this book up and giving it a read. I do tend to find that even if I DNF a book, I usually still walk away with something from it, even if it's not a complete reading experience. Side note, I have been sipping on some carrot juice all day today for my nausea, and it's been really helping. I really want to get into my book haul books, but I am not feeling well enough for it yet, and I want my experience to be like so positive and immersive and energized. Anyways, I'm going to think about my next reads. I have been lightly dabbling in between the handful of books I have still yet to finish. Of my current reads, I have 3 more books that I need to get through. I'm halfway through 1 and then 60 to 65% through in 2. It is Wednesday, August 28th, day 68. And for this session, I wrote 159 words. My weekly total is 1,070 words. Today was a bit of a challenging session, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm going to stop here to revel in what I've done so far. I am loving this slow writing process. I feel like I appreciate the journey so much more. It honestly feels virtually effortless, and I love that.